Welcome to my channel, where boring history turns into quiet bedtime stories. Before you close your eyes tonight, let me ask you something. What if I told you that an entire empire, its palaces, its temples, its bustling markets, vanished not because of war, not because of fire, but because of water? Yes, an empire that trusted the river too much, until the river decided to take everything back. Picture this. Children laughing in the streets, merchants closing their stalls, musicians playing soft tunes in a golden hall, and within hours, silence. The only sound left was the roar of water as the city disappeared forever. That is the story we're uncovering tonight, when rivers swallowed empires. Rivers are gentle to look at, aren't they? They sparkle under the sun, they soothe the air with their flowing sound, and they cradle villages with their endless supply of water. But beneath that calm lies a different truth. Rivers have moods. They can be kind, but they can also be merciless. And in history, there were moments when rivers decided they had been taken for granted too long. They rose higher, they swelled beyond their banks, and when they fell upon human pride, they left behind nothing but silence. Tonight's story belongs to one of those moments. Some say it happened along the Tigris and Euphrates, where Mesopotamian kings carved their names into clay tablets and believed their rule would last forever. Others whisper of the Indus Valley, where carefully planned streets and wells were swallowed by sudden floods. Still others point toward the Yellow River in China, so often called China's sorrow, where villages and dynasties alike trembled at its power. Wherever it was, the truth is the same. A river gave life. Then one day it decided to take it back. Let me bring you into that moment, softly, slowly, as though we were walking down the streets of that lost city on the last evening before the flood. The markets are closing. Merchants roll down their woven mats, gathering coins into clay jars. The air smells of bread, still warm from ovens. Children run in circles, shouting, their laughter bouncing off stone walls. The palace windows glow with lamplight, and inside, music drifts from string instruments, soft, winding notes that sound almost like a lullaby. No one is afraid of the river. Why would they be? The river has been their friend for generations. It carried boats filled with spices, silks, and stories. It turned fields green. It made them rich. It gave them confidence that their empire was untouchable. But down by the water's edge, something is different tonight. The current moves faster than usual. The surface shivers under the moonlight. Far upstream, unseen by the city, rains have been heavy. The river is swollen, restless, almost breathing with a slow, heavy rhythm. If anyone had been listening closely, they might have heard it. The whisper of water pressing against its own banks, the groan of the earth holding it back. But no one listened. They were too busy celebrating life. And then, without warning, the river stopped whispering. It roared. It began with a crack like thunder. The bank split. Walls of water surged forward, rushing into streets before anyone had time to scream. Houses were crushed. Carts were tossed like leaves. Families clung to rooftops, but rooftops crumbled. The palace, where music had been playing only moments earlier, shook under the force of water slamming against its foundations. Stone statues toppled. Temples collapsed. The air filled with a sound more terrifying than war, the endless, unstoppable roar of the river. Hours passed, though to the people it must have felt like seconds. And when the water finally calmed, there was no city left. Not even ruins. Just silence. Just mud, silt, and broken fragments carried downstream. The survivors, those who had fled to higher ground, returned days later. What they found was not their home. It was a flat, barren plain. The river had pressed everything down beneath its weight, erasing not just buildings but memories. It was as if the city had never existed at all. And so, centuries later, archaeologists dig in silence, brushing away dirt to find clay pots, fragments of walls, tablets marked with symbols. Small pieces, nothing whole. The river had stolen the story, and left us only whispers. This is the power of water. This is the memory of rivers. They are gentle givers of life, but when they choose, they can be ruthless takers of history. When the river finally quieted, what remained was not silence alone, but confusion. Survivors stood on higher ground, staring down at what had once been their home. Where streets had bustled with trade and laughter, there was now only waterlogged mud. Where palaces had sparkled under sunlight, there was only a gray plain, flat and cold. Imagine standing there, barefoot, the earth still damp beneath you, the smell of silt rising in the air. You look for your house, for the temple bell, for the market stall where you bought fruit every morning, but there is nothing. The river had taken it all, as though it wanted no trace left behind. The people wept, but their tears made no difference. Families searched for missing loved ones, calling out names that dissolved into the wind. They found broken clay jars, fragments of wooden beams, a half-buried statue face staring blankly into the sky. That was all. In time, they tried to rebuild. But the river had changed its path. What once had been fertile soil was now thick layers of mud, unstable and heavy. The ground would not carry walls anymore. Each attempt at building ended with collapse. To return was impossible. The city was not just gone, it had been erased from the map. And so, the survivors scattered. Some walked east, some west. They carried little but memory. They told stories of the night the river rose like a monster. But as generations passed, the memory softened. Children born later heard only whispers of the drowned city. And slowly, the empire became less of a fact and more of a legend. Yet rivers remember. They hold secrets beneath their currents. Archaeologists, thousands of years later, find them when they dig. A fragment of pottery here, a tablet with markings there. They piece together the puzzle and realize that once, in this forgotten plain, there was a city, organized, thriving, alive. And one day, the river claimed it. Let us pause for a moment, because this story is not just about one city. History shows us many examples of empires humbled by water. Think of Mesopotamia, the land between rivers. Its kings carved their laws into stone, believing their words eternal. Yet the Tigris and Euphrates were unpredictable. They flooded suddenly, wiping out farms, drowning villages, forcing entire populations to move. Civilizations there rose and fell with the rhythm of the water. Or consider the Indus Valley, one of the world's earliest urban societies. Its people built streets in perfect grids, dug wells for every neighborhood, and lived with remarkable order. But signs of sudden flooding are written in their ruins. The river they trusted turned against them. Their cities emptied, their people scattered, their brilliance forgotten until archaeologists rediscovered them thousands of years later. And then there is the Yellow River in China. For centuries, it was both blessing and curse. Its waters gave fertile soil, but its floods killed millions. Ancient dynasties called it China's sorrow, because time and time again, it erased entire settlements, reminding rulers that their power was never greater than the rivers. Do you notice the pattern? Empires build, empires grow proud, and empires forget that nature does not bow to them. Rivers are patient. They wait. And then, when the time comes, they reclaim what humans believed was theirs. Now, let us step back into our drowned city. Imagine the children who once laughed in the streets. They are gone, but perhaps their toys remain under layers of mud. Imagine the priests who sang in temples. Their voices are silent, but perhaps their prayers are etched into fragments of stone. Imagine the king who believed his palace would stand forever. His throne may still be buried, deep below the surface, hidden from sight, touched only by water and time. It is haunting, isn't it? To think of life swallowed whole. To realize that human hands cannot outbuild the patience of a river. But this haunting is also calming, in a way, because it teaches us that history is not only about battles and wars. It is also about silence, about the slow strength of water, about how time itself is a river, carrying everything forward until it disappears from view. So, the next time you sit by a river, listen carefully. Its surface may be calm, its song gentle, but beneath that there are memories. It remembers the footsteps on vanished streets, the cries of markets long gone, the laughter of children who once played by its side. The river remembers, even when we forget. Centuries passed, and the drowned city became less of a memory and more of a whisper. People who had once lived there told their children stories of a place swallowed by the waters. With every retelling, the details blurred. What had been streets and palaces became tales of golden towers and God's anger. The flood was no longer described as heavy rain, but as divine punishment. Memory turned into myth. And perhaps that is natural. When something is lost completely, when no trace remains above the ground, people need stories to explain it. They need meaning to fill the silence. So the river became a character in their legends, a restless spirit, a god with moods, a force that could bless with life or curse with death. For archaeologists today, these myths are clues. They dig not only in the soil, but in old songs and stories. They follow the whispers of folklore and compare them with layers of earth. Sometimes they find what they're looking for: broken pottery, burned wood, skeletons pressed into mud. They kneel in the dirt, brushing carefully with small tools, piecing together the truth of a flood that ended a civilization. Imagine an archaeologist uncovering a clay tablet. The symbols scratched into it tell of trade, grain, cattle, wool. Ordinary details of ordinary life. Yet those details feel extraordinary, because they belong to people who believed their city would last forever. The archaeologist lifts the tablet, turns it gently in their hands, and realizes, this was written just before the river took everything away. There is a quiet sadness in these discoveries. Not dramatic, not violent, but soft, like the hush after rain. History lost, history found, but never whole again. And this is what makes drowned empires so haunting. War leaves ruins, broken walls, fallen statues. Fire leaves ash. But water? Water leaves almost nothing. It smooths the edges, carries fragments far away, buries the rest beneath layers of silt. To stand on such a site today is to stand on silence itself. Let's wander back to the people of that drowned empire. Picture a woman who survived the flood, carrying her child on her hip, walking toward the mountains. Her husband gone, her home gone, yet she walks because she must. Generations later, her descendants might not even know where she came from. The city under the river is forgotten, but her bloodline continues, scattered across new lands. Or picture a priest, watching the temple collapse, clutching a sacred idol to his chest. Maybe he tried to pray above the roar of the water. Maybe he believed the gods were punishing them. His prayer drowned with him, yet the small idol might remain, buried under the riverbed, waiting thousands of years until an archaeologist uncovers it. History lives in such fragments. Not in the grand palaces we imagine, but in the small, fragile things that survive by chance. Now think of how rivers shaped not just history, but identity. Many cultures treated rivers as living beings. In Mesopotamia, people offered sacrifices to keep them calm. In the Indus Valley, the river was the heartbeat of the land. In China, poets wrote of the Yellow River with both reverence and fear. These were not just waterways, they were lifelines, storytellers, gods, and destroyers. Even today, when we look at rivers, we sense their quiet authority. Modern dams, levees, and canals try to control them, but floods still happen. The memory of drowned empires reminds us that control is an illusion. Water listens to no one. The haunting beauty of these stories lies in their duality. The same river that fed crops and carried trade also decided when the story would end. It is almost poetic, the giver and the taker, the mother and the destroyer. And so, when we say the river swallowed the empire, we don't mean it in a single night alone. We mean that over centuries it claimed its due. It carved itself into the map, shifted course, and demanded respect. The empire was not just lost in one flood, but in the slow, relentless reminder that humans cannot hold ground against water forever. Perhaps that is why sitting beside a river at night feels so peaceful, and yet so humbling. Its soft flow seems eternal, but deep down, you know it carries power beyond measure. It carries time itself. It carries secrets of drowned voices, forgotten footsteps, erased empires. And if you listen closely, as you sit by the water's edge, you might hear them. Not with your ears, but with your imagination. The faint echo of children laughing in vanished streets. The soft hum of traders calling out their goods. The whisper of priests singing to the gods. All washed away, yet never fully gone. Because the river remembers, even when we do not. History often speaks of kings and battles, of swords raised and crowns passed down. But the river teaches us something different. It reminds us that the greatest struggles are not always fought with weapons. Sometimes they are fought in silence, against forces no soldier can resist. Imagine a general, standing tall in shining armor, believing his army invincible. His strategy is flawless, his soldiers loyal. But when the river swells and bursts its banks, what can swords do against water? Armor rusts. Soldiers scatter. Even the bravest warrior cannot fight a flood. The river does not care about courage or pride. It simply moves unstoppable, indifferent. That is why drowned empires feel so humbling. They show us the limits of human power. The walls we build, the monuments we raise, the cities we design with perfect grids. All of them can be washed away in a single night. And yet we forget. Generation after generation, we repeat the same pattern. Building close to the water, trusting it too much, believing it will never turn on us. Perhaps that is why these stories still matter. They are not just old tragedies buried in mud. They are gentle reminders, carried by time, telling us to respect the balance between human ambition and nature's patience. Let us step deeper into the silence of that lost empire. Picture the city before the flood once more. Lamps glowing in windows, merchants counting their coins, children drifting to sleep as mothers hum lullabies. None of them knew they were living their last night in that city. There is something both heartbreaking and beautiful in that thought. The way ordinary life continues until the very end. When archaeologists dig today, they find traces of that ordinary life. A cooking pot, a spindle for weaving, a child's small bracelet. These objects are not grand, but they are intimate. They remind us that history is not only about rulers and palaces. It is about people who lived quietly, who loved, who dreamed, who never imagined their lives would become whispers under the riverbed. And in that there is comfort. Because even if the empire was erased, even if the city vanished, those tiny fragments bring them back. A clay jar is not just a jar. It is proof of meals shared, of hands that worked, of families that sat together in the warmth of their homes. A broken idol is not just stone. It is the echo of faith, of prayers whispered in candlelight. So, when we talk about rivers swallowing empires, we are not only talking about destruction. We are also talking about preservation. The river buried those cities so deeply that sometimes, thousands of years later, we can still find them, almost untouched. What seemed like loss became, in its own way, a kind of protection. Think of Pompeii, buried not by water, but by ash. Its people were frozen in time, their lives paused in a single tragic moment. Floods work differently, but the effect is similar. Under mud and silt, whole streets wait quietly as though asleep. When they are uncovered, we do not just see ruins, we step into the rhythm of lives that ended long ago. The haunting calm of these discoveries is what makes them perfect for nights like this. As you listen, maybe you feel the gentle pull of sleep. The story flows like the river itself, steady and quiet, carrying you along. You may even imagine yourself walking by that ancient riverbank, hearing the distant voices of a forgotten city. They are not frightening voices, only soft, faded echoes. They do not disturb you. They lull you. Because history, when told this way, is not heavy. It is light like water gliding past stones. It reminds us that time itself is a current, carrying us forward, washing away details, but leaving behind the essence of what mattered most. And so, as you drift further into this story, think of the empire not as lost, but as transformed. Its streets may be gone, but but its memory flows in every telling of this tale. The river swallowed it, yes, but in doing so, it gave it a strange kind of immortality. For tonight, as you listen, the drowned city lives again. We have walked together through the whispers of a forgotten city. We have seen how rivers can cradle life and, with the same hands, take it away. And now, as we come to the end of this story, let us sit quietly by the water's edge, as though the river itself were still speaking to us. Imagine yourself there. The night is calm. The moonlight stretches across the current in a soft, silver ribbon. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of wet earth. You hear the gentle trickle of water against stones. It is peaceful, so peaceful, that it is hard to believe this same calm surface once roared with the power to erase empires. But that is the truth of rivers. They are both stillness and storm, silence and thunder. They remind us that history is never fixed. It is flowing, shifting, changing with time. Archaeologists may keep digging, uncovering fragments of drowned cities, piecing together forgotten lives. Historians may keep writing, turning myths into facts and facts back into myths. But the river? The river needs no books, no records. It remembers in its own way. It carries memory in its flow, in the layers of mud it lays down, in the ruins it keeps hidden until the time is right to reveal them again. And perhaps, in that, there is a gentle lesson for us. We too are like rivers. We carry memories, some we share, some we bury deep. We build, we lose, we forget, and yet, in small ways, everything remains. Nothing is ever truly gone. It simply changes shape, waiting to be remembered once more. The drowned empire is not just a tragedy. It is a reminder of humility. That no matter how grand we build, no matter how confident we feel, we are always part of something larger, something patient, something eternal. The river was here long before the empire, and it will be here long after us. And yet, that does not make our lives meaningless. In fact, it makes them precious. The laughter of children in the vanished streets, the music that played in the palace, the quiet meals shared by families. These moments mattered. They mattered then, and they matter now because they remind us of the simple beauty of being alive, even if only for a brief time. So, as you drift deeper into rest, let the story linger softly. Picture the empire not as drowned, but as sleeping beneath the water, its voices carried by the current, its memories flowing through time. The river did not erase it completely. It simply folded it into the great story of the world. And tonight, you became part of that story. By listening, by imagining, you gave life again to those forgotten streets, those vanished voices. For a little while, the empire rose once more, not in stone but in memory. Now let it rest again. Let the water close gently over it. Let the echoes fade into the quiet hum of the river. You are safe here, listening, breathing slowly, carried by the calm flow of time. History, after all, is not only about remembering. It is also about learning to let go, to surrender to the currents we cannot control. So close your eyes now. Breathe in deeply and breathe out softly. Feel the rhythm of your breath join the rhythm of the water. The empire has drifted away, and so can your thoughts. Welcome the silence. Welcome the stillness. Welcome the gentle embrace of sleep. The story of the drowned empire is over for tonight. But the river keeps flowing. And perhaps, somewhere in your dreams, you will hear its song again. Good night.